Alright guys, welcome back to another video, and in this tutorial we're finally going to be talking about the heart and soul of Excel. I'm talking about formulas and functions. Now, the formulas and functions ability in spreadsheets is pretty much the reason that any spreadsheet program, including Excel, is popular at all. It's the reason that people buy this software. So what it is basically the ability to perform many calculations really quick and really easily. So, of course, whenever we're making calculations, you need to open up a file with some kind of numerical data in it. I'm using New Visitors to Bucky's Room, but you can really use any one you want. You actually, for this tutorial, you can probably just use, whatever numbers pop into your head, but, like I said, if you want to follow along, then open up this project file. So before we get into, making some complex formulas and crunching a bunch of numbers, I'll show you guys how to set up a really basic formula. So a formula is pretty much just an equation. So just like you would do in math or type into a calculator, whenever you make an equation, it needs to be equal to something. So every single formula starts with an equal sign. Now after this, some of the most basic things that you can do is just perform basic mathematical operations like you would type into a calculator. So you can put something like 12 plus 65 to add two numbers, and of course the data that displays in the cell isn't this text itself, it's the result of that equation. Pretty cool. However, if we were just to do this, it's not that impressive because we have calculators lying around our desk, and we also have a calculator built right into our computer's operating system, so it's kind of a waste of time, not very useful. Now the power of working with spreadsheets is the ability to reference other cells. So instead of just having an equation like 74 minus 23, what we can do is we can have an equation to set this cell, D3, equal to another cell such as this. So set your equal sign right there and then click another cell and check it out. Now D3 is equal to the value of B3. Pretty sweet. However, I know what you're thinking. That isn't really useful ever because, we already know how to cut, copy, and paste. So really, we could just do this with a calculator, and we can do this with, copying, pasting. So let's go ahead and, actually, let me delete all this. And I'll show you guys the one last thing that is pretty much the foundation of how you're going to work with spreadsheets from now on. Whenever you're working with a spreadsheet, what you do is you don't treat it like a calculator and you don't just treat it like cut, copy, and pasting. You actually combine both of those techniques. So say that, actually make a actual example here. So right now this is the visitors to my website. And say that I was projecting that in 1 year, the projections of visitors is going to be whatever this is plus 100,000. So what I could do is actually go in an empty cell such as C2, set it equal to the value of this, which is 151,444 plus 100,000. So there you go. So now the new value of this cell is equal to the reference of another cell, which is B2 plus 100,000. So that's pretty cool. And another cool feature I want to talk about real quick is anytime you say, okay, you know what, this number was actually off, I might have copied it wrong in the first place, so I'm actually going to change this to 51,462 and hit enter. Look at what happens to this new cell that we had the formula in. It automatically corrects itself because you're not, this equation right here, it isn't set to an absolute value. It's set to a reference of another cell. So whenever the value in this cell changes, the entire value of the resulting equation changes as well. Pretty sweet. Now, before we talk about that anymore, I'll just talk to you guys about the basic operators and some rules that we have to follow whenever we're making formulas. Now, the first one is, I'll show you guys the different things that you can do. Obviously, you saw it before. We can just add two numbers, 54 plus 32. We can also subtract like 54 minus 32. Simple enough. Now, multiplying and dividing is a little bit not as intuitive. Anytime you want to multiply numbers in Excel, use the asterisk. So this would be 6 multiplied by 8, and of course the asterisk is above the 8 on your keyboard. So of course that is the product of that is 48. Now whenever you want to divide, you put equals something like, I don't know, 9 divided by 2. Now the sign for division is the /. So again, not that intuitive, but I don't know, you get used to it after a while. And the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is definitely not the first thing to pop into your head. Anytime you want to use exponents like 5 to the power of 3, use 5, and it's actually the caret, it's above the 6 on your keyboard, caret 3. So what this means is 5 to the power of 3, and we're going to end up with 125. So 5, 25, 125, there you go. So again, that's how you add, subtract, multiply multiple pies. Oh, I wish I had multiple pies. Multiply, divide, and use your exponent symbol with a little caret. So we already learned a bunch of stuff. We already learned that you can make formulas, perform simple mathematical equations, reference other cells, and also tie those ideas together to use the references of other cells inside our equations. So we already have our brain packed full of a bunch of sweet info. So in the next tutorial, trust me, there's a lot of other stuff to cover, but I'm going to make it real easy for you guys, and you guys are going to be a pro working with formulas and functions in no time. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys later.